yeah, it's beautiful. And, Marco, such a shirt was in as well. Yes. I did want to put a few things right, and I do want to leave you with an analogy. They say the analogy is the words of the intelligent. I use analogies not because I'm intelligent, but because I can't invent my own things. And that's been the way since I started at QACI. And without having a history lesson, I remember I sat in front of an Assistant Director General, shaking, because I'd never met an Assistant Director General, and he said, so we've got you down here to start the academy, and there's a couple of things all you need to know. Is, one, they're going to be Queensland's best and brightest. They're going to be 15 to 17-year-olds. Two, they're going to study the IB curriculum. Three, it's going to be a digitally rich environment. And four, they're going to have a uniform. And if in 5 years' time this school feels like a school, you fail. And so I left his office and I thought, holy cow, what do I do? So I did a bit of reading, and I suppose my final analogy is I'm a huge admirer of Apple, the company Apple, and in particular its CEO, Steve Jobs, which is a bit of an irony because of all the people in this theatre at the moment. Probably the person who is least adept of anything to do with Apple is the person standing before you. But that doesn't change anything, just say as I do, or whatever the saying is. But I looked at Apple, and Apple was a company that did things differently in the tech world. And it was pretty tough at the start because not a lot of people were buying the Apple machines at that time. But the one thing I admired about Apple that I thought that this academy could be was they had one thing that they stuck to, and that was Apple has got to matter. It's got to matter to people's lives. If it doesn't matter to people's lives, then it's not Apple, and we don't do it. And they had a pretty amazing CEO, and I'm not comparing myself to Steve Jobs, because he stuck to that. And when there were economic challenges, and you know, IBM was selling thousands and thousands and thousands of computers, they stuck to that and said it has to matter. And I read about that and I thought, well, okay, I'd love QACI to be what the iPhone is to the phone industry. And the thing that makes an iPhone work is that people connect to it. And you get to add things to your iPhone that personalise it and make it your particular journey and your particular phone, whether it be your iTunes or whether it be your apps. And so you emotionally connect with it so it means something to you. And so QACI has, I hope, would be an iPhone to you people. Yeah, it'd have the connectivity and the stuff that allows it to do all that sort of stuff, and that's the IB. But it's what you surround the connectivity or the Telstra 3G or whatever it is with that really makes the experience. And so, you know, that Apple improved people's lives, and that was pretty important, and that was critical. But the other thing that everybody spoke and said that when Steve Jobs passed away, that Apple would change. You know, they were bracing for it on the stock market, for the shares to drop out. But that didn't happen. And Apple has continued its journey, is now, I think, one of the world's biggest company, if not the world's biggest company. It's one of the most iconic brands, and most importantly, it's a brand that people connect with and they love and admire. And that wouldn't have happened if it was just about Steve Jobs himself. It's continued that way because there were many people who believed in the product that he was just the face of. And it continues now. And it doesn't mean it won't change. It'll change. You know, in 5 years' time, there's going to be an I something that'll engage people and it'll connect with them and it'll matter to people. So the objects might change, but long as the vision of Apple and that culture that they have doesn't change, then that's the important thing. The other thing about Apple was there was a second name that was involved in the startup of Apple. And very few people remember that name just like that. They all know about Steve Jobs. And his name was Steve Wozniacki. And he was the person that in the early days was in that garage with Steve Jobs thinking about inventing the computer that later went on to become the iPhone and iPad that's in your pocket. There are people in this room now who are as important to this academy's development than Steve Jobs is to Apple. They are the Steve Wozniaks of QACI. And so while Steve Jobs might be moving on, I want to pay tribute to them, because I can assure you, whilst many of you thank me, none of this would have happened without a few people. And they're the people in this room that were the foundation staff of QACI. They were here when we had an IB syllabus, we had 90 kids enrolled, we didn't have a building, and they took a risk like those foundation 90 kids. And they're still here. So you don't have fears about one person leaving, because the core of QACI is still here. The apple, if you like, is still the core of Apple will take it future. And I speak of John Carrozza, Jim Duncan, Karen Priest, Christina Coleman, Stephen Mathias, Jenny Jenke, Katrina Hill. And while she's not actually physically here, she's still involved heavily in the QACI and Kathy Mackey. And then you have the very first person, then you have Mrs. Jenkins up on level 7, our first teacher aide, and also you have in the front office the very first person I employed who came to work at QACI in Mrs. Larkin. They're the Steve Wozniaks of QACI. They're the people who built what you have today. And make no mistake, whilst there's a Steve Jobs and there's a John Joes, they're the people who've made this academy. So, as the future goes on, I know there'll be fears, like there might be with the stock market, that, you know, oh God, the CEO's gone, it's all going to go to pieces. It won't go to pieces, because you just hang on and hold dear to the things that you value about this place, and you make sure that the next people who come along appreciate and value as much as you do. And we keep innovating, I don't want to come back to QACI in 5 years' time and find it the same. I hope that the values are the same in the way you look after each other and you speak about each other is the same. But I also would like to come back and think, just like Apple, it's still meeting young people where they're at, and it's exciting for them, and they want to be part of it. That's what makes a great organisation and a great experience. So look, thank you very much for what you've said today and what you've contributed. It has been an amazing experience for me. It's been life-changing. And not many principals can say that. So, all the very best. I'll still be about. I'll be the guy that will cross the street to say hello to you and without you knowing. So, thanks very much for today, and all the very best.